Welcome to Build Your Best Brand, a free monthly virtual education series brought to you by Embellished Brands. My name is Jamie Wright, and I am the founder and CEO of Embellished Brands, and we empower small businesses and nonprofits to confidently steward their brands and grow with purpose. We believe in a brand first approach that building a strong brand foundation supports organizational operations and marketing initiatives, and this is true for both small businesses and nonprofits. So today's topic is brand management principles for building a sustainable brand strategy. And this is part 3 in our 3-part series about brand stewardship. We have been talking about how your best brand doesn't magically appear out of thin air. Like anything worth creating, it takes time, intention, and care to craft a brand identity that resonates. So, as I mentioned, this is part 3 of our conversation about brand stewardship. If you would like to catch up on parts 1 and 2, we've got the links here that you can click and go back and watch them. So, first, let's do a review about what is brand stewardship. It's the conducting, supervising, or managing of something, especially the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. That definition comes from Merriam-Webster. So basically, brand stewardship is the act of managing a brand. And you, as the leader of your small business or nonprofit, or as someone who runs a marketing department, you are here because you want to learn more about branding and because you're in that position of being the one to guide and also guard your organization's brand. And that is a responsibility, in my opinion. And as brand leaders and managers, we do not set it and forget it ever. We want to be active participants in creating a strong and lasting brand identity. And that requires keeping an eye on things, testing things, and making adjustments as needed. Let's dive into the brand management principles for building a sustainable brand strategy that we will be discussing for today. Principle number 1 is that core brand elements are your brand's sacred foundation. They are your guardrails. They are also maybe called guiding principles, or it could be what you might call the North Star for building your brand or organization. No matter what you call them, their purpose is to provide you with some boundaries that your organization will operate within. And they also serve as the foundation upon which everything else is built. Okay, so to use an analogy, think of it that your brand elements are like the cement foundation that gets poured and cured before the walls of a structure start being built. That is what your core elements do for you. So what are those core brand elements that I'm talking about? Well, they're your mission statement, they're your vision statement, your core values, your target audience, and products, services, and programs. Now, some people might think the first 3 in this group are your core brand elements, but in the work that I've done with my branding clients, I've expanded this list to also include your target audience as well as your organization's offerings, whether it's products or services or programs, because they all actually work together to create the core of your organization. And as we'll be discussing with the future principles we'll get to in this presentation, they all are important components that will that the rest of your organization is going to be dependent upon. So let's look at how that works. The second principle we're going to talk about is that a deep understanding of your audience drives your offerings. So because your brand exists to achieve a specific mission and vision through the products, services, and or programs you've developed, you've got to make sure that these things that you are doing, the mission you want to achieve, and the way that you're going to achieve that mission is something that resonates with the people who you are seeking to serve. you'll have to take a look at whether your mission supports the services or offerings that your organization has, and then whether those two things, your mission and even your vision, and then your offerings, whether that is something that resonates with your target audience. So, in order to double check that, you want to find out everything there is to know about your audience and use that information to ensure that you're aligning your brand offers with their desires. When you intimately know your audience, you will know how to serve them, and they will want to be served by your organization. And we'll discuss how that happens with the next principle when we get to it. But I hope I'm making myself clear here. So you have your core elements, right? The mission and vision and the values that support the work that you want to do, and then your services is how you're going to do the work. But then you need somebody to help with those things. And if you're not connecting with your target audience, you are not going to be successful in providing your offerings. Again, whether it's services, whether it's products, whether it's some kind of program. And then if you're not successful in that area, you are not going to be successful in achieving your mission. And for those organizations that have a vision as well, if you're not achieving your mission, you are certainly not achieving your vision. Okay? So I hope that helps clarify how all of these core elements, A, are really important and that they are truly the foundation of your organization. But then B, with this particular principle, I hope you see how you need to really understand your target audience in order to serve them well. If you aren't serving your audience well, we might need to figure out what's going on there. And that leads us to our next principle. Clear brand messaging is the bridge between your brand and your audience. It's one thing to know your audience well, and it's another thing for them to listen and receive what you are saying to them. Ultimately, your brand message should resonate with your desired audience so they pay attention to what you're saying and understand how your brand can help them. And understanding how your brand can help them is understanding your services, your products, your programs, whatever it is that you offer, that they understand that those are things that they need. In some cases, maybe it's not even a need, maybe it's just a want, but they understand that this is a thing intended for them. And because they have that understanding, that opens them up to being able to accept what you are trying to provide to them. Your brand message, voice, and tone should all be crafted to speak to your audience's values, needs, and wants, while also conveying your brand personality. And if there is a misalignment, which essentially means you're not selling the products, they're not buying, they are not signing up for your programs, they are not coming in to receive your services, that means that something isn't working. And if that's the case for your organization, whether it's a small business or nonprofit, you might need to go back and reevaluate whether some of your brand elements are, just maybe not working right, maybe adjust those a little bit, or maybe you need to go back and reevaluate who your desired audience is. You might think this one particular group is the group to serve, but maybe they don't want what you have to serve, but there's some other audience segment that exists that actually would want what you have to offer. That's always a possibility. It could be both. It could be that your brand elements need to be worked on, and you might need to adjust your desired target audience. There could be some other factors that come into play here. But truly, one of the key pieces in building a sustainable brand is being able to communicate your brand and your offerings to the people you're trying to reach. And if you can't reach them, it's likely because there is a disconnect between some of your brand elements, or maybe there's a lack of understanding of your target audience, so you're not able to communicate clearly to them, or if even potentially you're speaking to the wrong people. If there is some difficulty in achieving your mission and your goals with your target audience, then perhaps it might be time to go back to the drawing board. And that brings us to our last principle for today: never become stagnant. Now, we discussed this in part 2 of this series, and I probably mentioned it in part 1 as well. But as I said at the beginning of this presentation, we do not set it and forget it as brand managers and as leaders of our organization. So that means we need to frequently review what is working, what's not working, what might be outdated, what our audience is responding to, or what they're not responding to, as we mentioned in the previous principle. And then even how are our visuals and messaging aligning with our current goals? If something is off, you are not going to see the results that you want. And in my experience, that's not necessarily a marketing problem. It's usually a branding problem. And once you go back to these core elements and you fix whatever is not working and whatever is out of alignment, that's when we start seeing more progress to reaching the goals that we have for a brand. So that is why I am strongly recommending as a brand manager that you don't become stagnant. Be in a place where you are keeping an eye on things, you're frequently evaluating all of the things, what's working, what's not, and then making adjustments as needed. And I recommend that a young or growing brand should do a brand review more frequently. This might be maybe every 6 to 9 months. And if you are a very young, very new organization, you might actually need to do a review more frequently just to make sure that uh, you're figuring out quickly what is working and also what's not working, so you can stop doing what's not working and do more of what is working. Um, Established brands should complete a formal review maybe every 12 to 18 months. And that is because you are in a position where you've tried a lot of things that haven't worked, and you've also figured out a lot of things that do work. So you want to continue to do more of what is working. And so you might be able to get to a place where, I don't want to say you can coast, because again, we don't want to set it and forget it, but you might be at a place where you don't need to do as many adjustments as you used to, and that's a good thing. But you still want to keep your eye on everything. Keep evaluating, keep looking to see if there's things that need to be adjusted here and there, and do that. Now, these recommendations in terms of timing, it also depends on what type of organization you have. If you are a product-based business, you're in the retail or e-commerce sectors, you might actually have to do reviews more frequently because there's a lot of competition in the marketplace. But service-based businesses and even nonprofits, once your brand becomes more established, you probably don't need to make adjustments as frequently as a product-based business might. But you'll figure out what works best for your organization over time. And so as the brand manager, you get to make those decisions. But these are simply my recommendations if you just need a little bit of a guide to keep moving forward. Here's what we talked about today. The brand management principles I want you to remember as someone who is managing your organization's brand is that the core brand elements that you have are your brand's sacred foundation. Everything comes from those. A deep understanding of your audience is going to drive your offerings. So if there's a disconnect with your audience, it might be your offerings, or it could be your audience, your understanding of them, or maybe you need to adjust who your desired audience is. Third, your clear brand messaging is the bridge between your organization and your audience. And then lastly, never become stagnant. I hope the This series with Build Your Best Brand and brand management principles and just our conversation about brand stewardship in general was really helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can connect on social media, or you can visit our website. I am happy to answer any questions that you have. If you want to talk about any brand issues you might have in your organization, I welcome you to reach out and set up a discovery call, and we can talk about what the issue might be and how Embellished Brands can help you resolve it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.